Odense, Denmark, 1951. Old houses in an old neighborhood, known particularly for one name. From around the globe, people would come to Odense and visit H.C. Andersen's house in Hans Jensenstræde. It wasn't the greatest amount of people who came to Odense those days, but every now and then, a tourist bus would pull up near their house and set off a busload of passengers. The visitors was often intrigued by the old house and surprised to see the old chimney sweeper as taken out of one of H.C. Andersen's well-known stories. Maybe it wasn't just the atmosphere, but there was something adventurous about the place. And to add to the adventurous theme, people could see the chimney sweeper walk on the roof with bare feet. Indeed, it was clear to all that Odense had something to offer. But it wasn't always the well-known house of H.C. Andersen that drew people from near and far to the city, but something else. You see, Odense was a great city, and like other great cities in Denmark, like Copenhagen and Aarhus, it had something that those cities usually had. It had trams, and in Odense these were red, the red trams. A color the trams gained in the 1920s when they were changed from a darker green color. Odense's main tram line opened in 1911. It started out in Fonsbø, went through the city centre and ended up at Hullerup Skov. At each end of the line there was a so-called sløjfe, or loop, where the tram could be turned around. The tram would enter the loop and, with a high screaming sound, turn around and prepare for the journey towards Hullerup Skov. On hot spring and summer days, the zoo and surrounding Tivoli would attract people in great numbers, and the journey by tram was just a part of the experience. From Fonsbø, the tram line went down the so-called green belt of Sønder Boulevard on its way towards the city centre. The next stop on the line was to stop at the hospital. Here would always be many passengers during the visiting hours. After a brief stop, the tram continued to the next stop on the line, Kaserne, some few hundred meters further ahead. From Sønder Boulevard's Green Avenue, the tram continued down Søndergade. Onwards through Vestergade, and you were inside the busy city traffic. Kongsgade. Here the tram from Fonsbø would go into a siding and make way from the tram coming from Hullerup Skov. Østre Stationsvej. At this section of the tramway there was double track, and as well as a boulevard, the tram line continued onwards towards the city centre and the central station of Odense. On a typical summer's day, it wasn't unusual for the tram to have its normal coach replaced by some open excursion wagons. This type of open coaches was usually used on school trips, and it was the joy of many a school child to experience the sights and sounds of the great city behind a tram. The children of such school trips would usually disembark at the central station, and then continue on to the next experience on rails, hopefully behind a real steam engine. Like with everything else, also the Odense tramways needed maintenance now and then, and here the overhead wires at the old goods central are being mended. Note the very majestic style of the building in the background. The tracks were also greased, and every now and then a welding team had to come to their rescue to maintain the very worn tramway lines. After welding, the rails were grinded. The tramways did what they could to make sure that passengers were treated well and that they were served in the best way possible. People lifted their hats and said hello to friends and family before stepping aboard the tram and starting their journey. In Nørregade there was yet another stop. A quick pass of the Skov tram before continuing the journey. Past Fisketorvet and Fynens biggest newspaper, the Fyn Times, Fyns Tidende. Then followed the crossing between Nørregade and Vestergade, where the traffic was so intense that it had to be controlled with traffic lights. Here we see the tram at Albani Torv. And a turn past the City Hall, which for the last couple of years had been a construction site. And then you were in the heart of the city, Flakhaven. From this center of the city, people could change from the tram to local buses or simply go shopping, and one of the ways to do that was visiting the old market where old traditions was kept alive. For instance, it was possible to taste the cucumber before buying it, as nobody wanted a bitter cucumber. There was usually market days on Albani Torv and Klingenberg. Flowers, vegetables, fruits, and real market atmosphere could be experienced at these markets. And all of that could be witnessed from the tram passing by. Here seen behind the church and towering over the rooftops, the old gas tower could be seen. Also this part of Odense would one day be history, along with a little red tram, here passing down St. Knuds Kirkestræde. Down Klaregade, past Filosofgangen, and passing over Odense River. Down Hunderupvej, down Bylåsvej, and out onto Læsøgade. This always happened with extreme caution. One final crossing with the tram from Skov, and the destination was just ahead. Skov. Here the tram would end in a loop inside the forest, and for a short while the passengers could experience the atmosphere of the forest before disembarking. But then they also arrived and the journey had ended. Here was Honor Skov, and welcoming the Odenses citizens with its green environment. Though most of Odenses' rolling stock was scrapped in 1952 when the tram lines closed, one tram has found a new lease of life. Number 12 was sold to the Uppsala tramways in Sweden in 1945 along with a sister tram, number 6. This particular tram survived after being purchased and was in 1973 discovered in a backyard in Sweden, where the Swedish equivalent to the Danish Tramway Society sent it back to Denmark, and here it was restored. In 1997 the tram was reintroduced to service and can now be seen along with many other trams at the Danish Tramway Museum. More information about this tramway museum can be found at sporvejsmuseet.dk.